good afternoon.
That's right.
Middle of the night.
It's always a good time at AYC.
Oh, there it is. I was saying, whenever you watch this,
Yeah.
good to you.
Good on you. Welcome, guys, to the AYC podcast. This is episode 6, and this is back-to-back episodes with guests, right? This is now 3 in a
Preston
row.
Isaiah, and now my good friend Jacob McCracken.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Jacob, I've never called you Jacob before. Is that your name? My good friend.
When I was
Don't know his name.
before I needed a professional job and was graduating college, it was Jake.
Yeah.
Then when I wanted to get a job, I switched to Jacob. So it depends on at what point in my life someone met me as to what my name is.
Oh, you're Jake.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
for
to
you
me,
it's
you're
Jake because I didn't want a job when I met you.
You're the second best Jake on a podcast that I know.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jake and I met my senior year of college, which was your freshman year, coming into what's now called Life Pacific University. But then, small world, you grew up here in Salem, specifically at West Salem Foursquare Church, where I ended up after graduation becoming the youth pastor here.
That's true. Yeah, I grew up here in West Salem. Went to West Salem Foursquare since I was in middle school. Graduated high school in 2009 at West Salem. And then, went down to life and met yourself there.
Met myself.
Boom.
After graduation of college, what's your story? Just brief, your history.
Yeah, so I graduated college 2014. I was on that 4.5-year track. When I was there, I met my wife, who was on a 3.5-year track. And we went out to Boston for 5 years. She got her master's out there. I sold real estate for a little while, worked for a medical company, and then we actually ended up moving back to Southern California after about 5 years out there, and now we both work back at Life Pacific University.
I'm going to assume that when you say you moved to Boston, you didn't actually move to Boston. You lived in like a suburb. Like just how like when I'm other places in the country, I don't say, I'm from Salem. I say like, I'm from Portland area.
Ironically enough, we moved to Salem, Massachusetts.
Wait, for real?
Yeah, we lived in Salem, Massachusetts for that time.
Give us your best.
You've lived in 2 Salems.
Yeah.
What's the better of the Salems? Don't answer that.
Salem, Massachusetts.
Which one was
He's
the...
probably not wrong.
Which one was the Salem witch trials?
Salem, Massachusetts.
So this is the way better
Oh,
one.
so yeah, we're good to go.
But it actually took place in Danvers, Massachusetts today. Nope,
Yeah.
it didn't take place today. It took place in what is called now Danvers, Massachusetts.
Oh, okay. So now it's
I
not
actually know
Salem, it's Danvers.
nothing. Yeah, I know nothing about it. But
Me neither. But people, like, when I was in college and
Yeah.
I told them I was from Salem, Oregon, they're like, oh, is that where the witch trials are from?
yeah,
And I was
I
like,
bet that happens.
I was like, I don't think so. Because
Yeah.
I never really knew. But I knew it
Most
wasn't.
people that live here think that until they
Really?
learn.
sure.
Yeah,
Give
there's
us your
some
best Massachusetts like accent.
Oh.
I was taking my car. We had a Jeep, and I was taking it to get fixed because it was making some really funny noises. And I'm sitting in the waiting room, and the car's just in, a bay of garages, and I'm just right on the other side of a glass door. And the guy had jacks the car up, and he's looking at it and stuff. And literally from where the cars are, like the bay of cars, I just hear, "Oh my God, dude, you're screwed." He comes,
guy's an
he's
actor.
like, "Come in here." And I go in there, and he's like, "Oh, you're screwed, man." And he was, so that's my best way to get into it.
That was
Yeah.
great.
But I'm a local now. I parked the car in Harvard Yard. I did it all.
Oh, wow.
I know.
I don't know what any of that means, but it sounds like fun.
I'm actually now like, what was wrong with the car?
Yeah.
So the drive.
Oh.
You help me, maybe you detail them. Whatever holds the tires together,
Yeah.
right, and turns them
Okay.
and stuff. It had broken off, and so when I was
Hey.
turning, it was
You
hitting
worked.
the tire.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So he's like, "We can't even do anything for this." So right next door, they like re-welded the car.
Oh, wow.
Because everything out there when it snows, it's just salt, so your car's just rust.
Oh.
Yeah, so it had just rusted and broken, and
Oh, wow.
I hit a pothole, and it just.
Yeah, no, and
That's
that's the
rough.
better Salem.
Well, our first guest would know,
Salty.
Preston. He would know what
Mechanic.
that piece is called in your car, but I
Yeah.
don't because detail
I don't.
cars, I don't fix them.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah.
anyway, yeah, actually, so dude, we've technically known each other for like,
Since 2009.
yeah, it's like 13 years.
So everyone
You
knows
guys
that's
want-
13 years.
You guys want to know something funny? In 2009,
Yeah, what,
You were
you were
13.
born. You were getting born.
I was 8 years old.
We were babysitting him.
I was 8 years old when
my
you guys
gosh.
first met.
Me too.
Wow.
I'm a youngin.
Why'd you go to Life? Life at the time it was Life Pacific College. Now it's Life Pacific University. And I didn't even say this.
Moving up.
He's now employed there.
Mm-hmm.
You're on
Yep.
not
Yeah,
faculty.
you said that you and your wife work
We
there.
both work there. I work in admissions, and then my wife works for Res Life, so she coordinates all the housing stuff.
Mhm.
I went to Life, and my story I think is similar to most people that go to college, because I thought I was going to do X, and now I'm doing Y. And
Right.
so
Gotcha.
I went to Life Pacific because I was going to be a youth pastor. And through my 4 years there, we got a really strong desire to go into business and then use those opportunities to then still minister inside the church without having a church title. And that kind of became my focus. And so I went on about a year ago, wrapped up a master's in business administration, and now obviously working at the university and treating that as kind of a business for me, because schools are businesses. And so I went to Life initially because I wanted to be youth pastor, but then through the development and the growth that happened and took place when I was there, and the networking connections and things like that I made, realized that I really had a passion for business.
Yeah.
So that's when I started going that route.
That's funny because that's kind of somewhat different story from mine, because to be honest, I didn't go to Life Pacific because I was like called. It's a Bible college. I didn't feel called into ministry or anything like that. I went because it was in Southern California. I was like growing up in a small town in Eastern Washington and just saw opportunity to get to the big city in Southern California. Let's do it. And but I was studying to be a teacher at the time. I was on the education track. And then
I didn't know that. I didn't know that you were going to be a teacher.
yeah, dude, I wanted to be this is funny. So I wanted to be a math teacher. I either wanted to be elementary.
Whoa.
Yeah, 2 + 2. I either wanted to be elementary school teacher or high school. And I said, like, literally going into college, I said, I don't want to be a middle school teacher. I don't want to mess with middle school. And I don't want to be in ministry. I don't want to be a pastor.
Wow.
And then when I graduated, I became a middle school youth pastor.
That's hilarious. That's cool, though.
And middle school is probably one of my favorite, like, phases and age of life. I love, yeah. So it's cool
They're
how
tons
God
of
works.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to college at Hillsong in Arizona, and I didn't even finish my first year. I didn't even stay. I loved it out there, and I just, I loved the people. I loved, getting to learn about Jesus. Mine was a Bible college too and stuff. So I went for ministries and worship arts, and it just wasn't for me. So I just came back home, and I planned on going there for 1 year, maybe 2 years. To get my certificate, and then maybe to get like an associate's kind of thing. They had a program there, and I ended up not even finishing my first year and just coming back home because not something I really felt was for me.
So when you say that, like,
Yeah.
and maybe Jake too, like, what do you guys think of like feelings, like being led by feelings versus calling?
Yeah.
I'm called there, or I feel led there, and how we can trust those, because there's a cultural thing, I think, especially in a young generation, that's like, just listen to your heart, do whatever makes you feel the best. Like, what are your thoughts on that, of navigating? I guess what I'm asking is navigating calling versus being misled by feelings, or if like those can work together or whatever.
Yeah, I kind of want to hear Jake's.
You have to drill in my opinion, you have to drill into calling. And your feelings are great, but feelings are fleeting. And you're going to have to understand your calling. And, for us as believers, and when that's your faith, very first place you have to start before you can move anywhere is go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Like, that has to be our first stone.
That's from Matthew Bible
Said it. And when you start there, that really has to inform your overarching calling of life.
Okay.
Because when I'm starting there, I'm happy, I'm mad, I'm sad. I feel like I want to do youth ministry for a little while. I feel like I want to go into business. I feel like, okay, I'm going to taste college for a second, but maybe it's not for me. When you start with go and make disciples, and that's your calling, the rest of it, you can work into it.
Okay.
because your calling's not always going to be your career. And so if my calling is youth ministry, when I feel like, wait, I really have a passion for business, I would lose my whole identity. Because no, my calling is youth ministry. So how can I have this passion for business and pursue that? But my calling is youth ministry, so I have to stay here. Well, no, my calling is go and make disciples, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. So I can go and start on a road and then kick onto a different one. And it's like what I was telling you last night at dinner. Realistically, we're working until we're 60 or 70 years old.
Right.
So I'm going to freak out at 22 because what I thought I was going to do for a long time isn't what I'm going to do anymore. And so that's where a lot of people get hung up. Whatever I do right out of college or whatever I study in college, that's going to be what I do for 60 years. No, it's not.
Yeah.
Nobody does that for 60 years.
That's not. I will be a youth pastor till I'm 77.
Hey, yo.
That's a good point. You'll do this till you're 60.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, last night at dinner we were talking about, that stuff and the stuff that you that your school offers at Life Pacific University. And my girlfriend Peyton studies there online, and she's kind of one of those lucky people where she actually gets to work in her calling because her calling is also her passion. And so she works at a school with kids, and she loves to lead.
My daughter's school.
Yeah. She gets to hang out with Penny and lead her. And so, yeah, she's working as like a kindergarten preschool teacher / teacher's aide. And she loves it. And she's going to school for it online at Life Pacific University. So what about when like your calling is something that you're also like passionate about? Like, is there what then? You know what I'm saying?
That's when you get lucky. And that's not going to be forever. I mean, she has the opportunity to do that now, and hopefully she can continue to grow and do that forever. But there might be seasons of her life where that passion looks like serving it in Sunday school at a church because she works full time doing X, or she gets into a position where she doesn't need to work and she cares more about being that passion for her kids and her family. And so that's where you get to kind of move through your passions. And when it lines up with your income, that's great. But your passion doesn't have to go away. And that's one thing that John Maxwell always says is a career you retire from. A calling you don't retire from. Like it doesn't say go and make disciples until you're 65 and you can retire and go to Florida or whatever. 77 for people like you. But again, when you can start at that first basic calling, now how do our passions inform how we do that? And, for me, the things I always think about with calling is what are you passionate about? What are you good at? And what does the world need? And when you can kind of Venn diagram the three of those.
Say that again. Just say those three again.
What are you passionate about? What are you good at? And then thinking of those two things, what does the world need? That those two things can begin to solve.
Yeah, that's good.
Because your calling's always bigger than you. Otherwise, it's just a career. Career you do for money. Calling you do for others.
That's good.
Yeah. I'm always conflicted, or I feel, I guess actually hypocritical would be the word. I almost feel like hypocritical because I feel like I am one of those small percentage of people that like my calling and career are the same. I'm so blessed and grateful to get to, hang out and pastor and minister, students and develop leaders and work in the church, which I love, and I believe in the church. And so that's why I feel hypocritical sometimes, like encouraging others, like, hey, you may have to explore other options, do other things. But then over the years, I've quickly realized that, like, I do love the church. I believe the hope of the world is the church, but not maybe necessarily what we would refer to as like the organization of church. I think the people as church, and when we all come together with that mindset, like you're talking about, like your career most oftentimes is not going to be your calling. But I think when you're operating in your career, there's opportunities to live out your calling, which we're going into the what the Bible says of making disciples. And I was listening to my dad preach years ago, and he was saying how, that scripture, go out into all the nations and make disciples, it actually could be translated to as you are going. So I think we're talking about you're a car detailer,
Yeah.
as you were. What would happen to that person as you're detailing a car, which I know you do this.
Yeah.
You're praying for them.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, and I just that the world needs people in the field everywhere. More
Yeah.
people are in the world
that's good.
than are actually in a building of a church.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
why are we not putting a
Limiting it?
focus? Yeah.
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 Yeah, kind of like what you're saying. After you had told me about your buddy, I can't remember his name, so forgive me, but you said that he's a really good cook, and he went to culinary school.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, like what do you do? Like what is up with this food? And he just said, I pray for it. Like while I'm cooking, that's all I do.
Yeah.
And after you told me about that, I was like, wow, that's really cool. So I started, at the start of every detail, I just pray like, God, like let this, not only this detail be a blessing, but this car be a blessing. Let it bless their family now and maybe their future family if they're going to have kids or whatever. And put your protection over it and over them kind of thing. And bringing that to that, but also like obviously like relationally and like, so I worked at a coffee stand called Happy Heart that was located at Capital Auto Group.
Wait, real quick.
Yeah.
That's my best friend, Seth Baker. He's now a senior pastor in Independence. And he also, check out his podcast called Pastors in Quarantine. Him and his buddies.
That's pretty cool.
It's really cool. I just started listening to it.
Yeah.
And it's senior pastors. It is a little more debate-based and intellectual, but I'm growing from it. So
that's cool.
Shout out Pastors
That's
in Quarantine.
Shout out.
Anyway.
Sweet. Seth, also, I want to try your food, so make me some. But yeah, so I worked at that coffee stand, and they had their menu, obviously, just like a basic menu, and I was trying to think of things like, okay, like what are the like drinks of the day every single day of the week that I could make? Just something fun where someone's like, oh, I don't know what to get. They see this drink of the day, and they're like, oh, cool, I'll try that. So I made one of them Matthew, one of them Mark, one of them Luke, one of them John. And so one of them was like a smoothie. The other two were different coffees. And then the Luke was like a lime and raspberry Red Bull or something like that. And just from doing that, I had probably like 4 or 5 different people just in that week be like, oh, this is cool. Like the Luke, like why did you name it that?
Yeah.
Because they kind of just had, at the stand more like flowery type names. Like the Red Rose was like a raspberry, strawberry, like Red Bull. And I was like, oh, they're books in the Bible
Right.
and disciples and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, that's really cool. What church do you go to? And people started asking me about church, or I'd be like, oh yeah, this is Matthew. He was a disciple, he wrote about Jesus and the ministry that he got to, be a part of with Jesus when he, was living in that and teaching and through that whole thing. So it's a cool thing. So that's kind of, I guess, where I found like, hey, this, my calling might not be to make coffee for the rest of my life, but my purpose is to, like you said,
Make disciples.
And
if you can make coffee while making disciples.
Exactly.
As a matter of fact, I would say you need coffee to make
coffee.
disciples.
But yeah, I just found like a way to like kind of incorporate that into what I was doing, not only for like my own joy and my own sanity, because I was so tired of making so many red roses and all this, that, and the other, but to also like have an opportunity for people to be like, oh, like, what's that about? And then kind of hit them with Jesus, I guess.
What would you say, Jake, to, a teenager that's, we'll say like upperclassman who's getting ready to kind of make some next decisions in their life, to help navigate, like, what is my calling and what is my career and how do I utilize my career to live out my calling? Like just a practical piece of advice.
What I would say first in regards to maybe making the decision of next step for college is nobody cares about, and I don't want to like step on toes, nobody cares about where your piece of paper came from. And half the time, nobody cares what your piece of paper is about until you get to the master's level. So for me, those students who, because if you want law and you want pre-law, you want nursing, like there's fields where you could know and you got to start at the bachelor's level, if not earlier. And that's great. Like those people have got it figured out. But those students who are up in there and they're like, I'll do community college or I'll do state school or whatever. What I always want to encourage them, again, as people of faith, is obviously bias here, think about a place like Life Pacific University because we've talked about your job's going to change.
Yeah.
Unless you're you. I graduated with a degree in transformational ministry. I came back to Oregon for 6 months. I worked at Olive Garden. I worked at a gym selling gym memberships. Moved to Boston, did front desk and compliance at a real estate agency. Moved into being a real estate buyer. Left that. Worked in medical billing. Left that. Now I work in higher education admissions.
Wow.
With a degree in transformational ministry.
And your goal was originally to be a youth pastor, you had said, right?
Exactly.
Wow.
And so go somewhere where you're going to grow, learn, and develop as a person and in something that is going to go through your whole life.
Yeah.
The Bible for us, right? As Christians. So at Life Pacific, you're going to get all that growth and a firm foundation in what you believe. And then have some direction in your life. But in general, someone not maybe thinking about college or, they have their college and their stuff figured out, but they're still trying to figure out what it means to walk out their calling and a career. You spend collectively 10 years of your life working. So clock in year 0, clock out at 10 years over the time of your life.
Right.
And the people that think that God doesn't care about what you do with that time are crazy. So while your calling may not be your career, he cares about your career.
Yeah.
And so awkward, basic as it is, you got to pray about it. You have to seek God and say, okay, go make disciples. I'm passionate about this. I'm really good at this. I think the world needs that. Is that going to be my career, or is that going to be a passion and my calling on the side of making coffee? Because that's what I need to do. Or on the side of working at a bank, or on the side of whatever.
Yeah.
Because really it's that calling that intersects between what am I good at, what am I passionate about, what does the world need? So one example I like to talk about a lot, and we covered this a little bit earlier, is streamers. People who are on Twitch, gaming, and doing it for the Lord. They're out there. Anybody who sleeps on those types of opportunities or talks down about them or says that's not a calling, like, what are you talking about? Get off your butt, quit playing games. They're missing it. They're missing the direction of where culture is going. And if you think about it, all the streamers and everything like that who aren't doing it full time, when do they do it? When they get off work. They go to work 8 to 5, they go home and eat, and then they go and build their stream, their following from 9 to 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Go to sleep, wake up and do it. And why can't we as Christ followers say, I'm doing this 8 to 5 because I have a responsibility to take care of myself, down the road, take care of my family, make sure I have a roof over my head, make sure my bills are paid. But I really feel like God's calling me to this. So 5:01 p.m. to 7:59 a.m. and wherever I can in my work, this is what I'm doing.
That's good.
I have a buddy here located in Kaiser, started a ministry called Satellite Gaming, and that's what they do. It's competitive gaming, and it's his ministry, and he's gathered. I mean, he gathers students all the time, and it's whether it's in COVID
I haven't heard about them in a long time. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, you're good.
He came to my middle school when I was a student.
Yep, he runs after school
in middle
programs.
school, like 8 years ago.
Yeah,
and talked about that. That's really cool.
He does it. He's turned it. It's his full time.
That's awesome.
He's able to provide for his family.
That's really cool.
And
I'm glad to hear that he's still doing that.
Gives incredible opportunity for students who were maybe viewed as like outcast or didn't fit in, but he saw them, and it's incredible because I'm not a gamer. I don't. It's such a foreign field for me, but that's his mission field, and it's really cool. It's funny you brought that up, and we'll wrap up, but I just wanted to add this to like what you were talking about, like your bias towards life, and I am too, because that's my alma mater and it's my experience, and it was so necessary for me. I knew that the one thing I would never retire from was being a follower of Jesus, and I'll someday, 77, retire from being a youth pastor. I'll move on, this and that. But like the one constant, permanent, forever is my relationship with Jesus. And so I knew for me, I wanted that to be, like we talked about foundation, or I wanted that to be like the thing that every other decision, everything I do has to flow from first. Like in order for me to go anywhere, it has to go through my relationship with Jesus. And same thing with, so that's why I was like, you know what, I'm going to go here. Cause I wanted to be a teacher. I could have gone anywhere to be a teacher except for Stanford. And that was for not great reasons.
Or Harvard.
Harvard. Never mind. I was gonna make an office quote. Anyway, but I knew I wanted a biblical foundation, you know. But then here's what I didn't expect that I would also say is a necessity. And one of the biggest things you get from college is you get your lifelong friends. Yep. And just in a couple days, I'm flying and meeting one of my best friends that we met in college, and from him, friends of friends. And so we have this little group, college buddies, and we're getting together, and they're like one of the number one reasons that like always strive to be like a better man and better husband and father and pastor. And so that's what I would say too is a big piece in choosing where you go and what you do is like where am I going to find people that also line up with my mission, my calling.
Yeah, you're the average of the 5 people you hang around the most.
Hmm.
And there's tons of places where you can go get the book, sit in the class, get the paper, turn it in, get a piece of paper after 4 years. There's very few places where you're going to get that piece, plus leadership development, soft skills, how to speak, how to have a resume, how to have emotional intelligence, how to build community like that. Mm-hmm. And that's what you want to look for.
That's good.
Because that's going to be what impacts you forever.
And others too. Yeah. That's really
Love
good.
that. Thanks for being here, Jake.
Yeah.
Thanks
is awesome.
for being here with me and having me walk in the door to be here.
My pleasure.
Boom.
You're my Chick-fil-A.
Hey, if you listen to this podcast before March 16th, join us. That's a Wednesday at 6:30, all church worship night. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be really incredible, an atmosphere, just encounter Jesus together through worship. And then as always, Sunday mornings, 9 and 11 a.m. And then our Sunday night, Alive Youth Church at 7 p.m.
That's right. And Lions Den, March 26th for high school aged guys and young adult dudes. March 26th, 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. We'll see you there too. So be there. It's gonna be tons of fun. I love doing this.
Yep.
Thanks for being here, Jake.
Go Gonzaga.
Appreciate you, man.
Thanks. See you guys later. Georgia State.
No.